Alright, welcome back. It's Monday again. If you wonder what happened to the video last Monday, it was my birthday. I was celebrating. I turned 40. You know, I could take a break too. Today, we're going to try something a little bit different. Today, I'm going to be sketching along with you guys. I'm talking about a subject that's kind of been like, I made a comic about it a day ago or so, and I had some interesting responses on it. And I want to talk about a little bit about what what AI art is. If you don't know what AI is artificial intelligence art, generated art, and people that call themselves AI artists. And I had some very spirited discussions in my comic yesterday, and it made me think to myself. A question that was asked, amongst the comments was, is AI art even art? To me, I thought, AI art is art. It has, it's an expression, even though the intelligence is artificial. It brought up some interesting philosophical discussions. The comic was about, basically, I'm not impressed with AI art. And my impression got lower and lower and lower the more I saw of it. And it's not because technically the art isn't, stunning, or it doesn't have, the merit isn't there. Like, it's not technically, flawed, or, I think it's very impressive if a human created it. But the way it's produced becomes less impressive the more I see it. And you're wondering, like, why is it less impressive the more you see it? It's almost like at the point where you see when you see like a machine produce a car. It's like, oh, it's a robot produced it. It had an assembly line. You gave it a certain number of instructions. The instructions were followed to a T, and it produced a car on the other end. Technologically, it's very fascinating, but after a while, if you've seen it a number of times, it becomes less and less fascinating. If you see somebody like craft a car by hand, they make all the pieces, by hand, and grind down every little bolt and nut. That's a more technologically more impressive piece of craftsmanship, and it always will be, as opposed to a machine doing it. But had somebody in my comments tag an AI artist who does AI art. They produce a piece that's generated with artificial intelligence, and they make their necessary changes to it. They add their own little flair and style to it. And they were defending what they do as an artificial intelligence, artist. And I was like, you don't have to defend yourself here. I'm just not impressed with what you do. And they took that personally, which I understand. I mean, I am no arbiter of what art is or isn't. I was only giving my opinion that my impression of it is it just gets lower and lower as I see it. There is something very, very enthralling about seeing a piece that was generated by human hands, because it gives you, the viewer, a little bit of insight into what a person does or can do with their own mind and their skill set as they've crafted it over a number of years. My analogy in my comic was, a jackhammer can break a brick, no problem. It's a technological feat. But it'll always be more impressive if somebody does it with their bare hands. Which I still believe is true. You see somebody break a brick with their bare hands, like, oh man, that's really impressive. You do it with a hammer or a jackhammer, you're like, oh, I mean, mission accomplished. You can go home safe. It's fine. But there is something very, endearing to what the human spirit and the human focus and craft can do when it comes to like martial arts or any kind of craft. If you're producing a coffee table, and you've, you know, chopped down a tree, and you've taken it back to your house and sanded it down, and, you know, you made all the fittings for it, that's going to be always a little bit more, you know, interesting to talk about, as opposed to a coffee table that came off an assembly line. Even if that assembly line is making a different coffee table every time, you know, due to artificial intelligence, you know, it's still doing what a human told it to do. The human element, the ratio of the human element, which is what I kind of label the comic, is always fascinating to me, because you can do an amazing, like, I'm not saying that artificial intelligence generated art doesn't have a place, because it's going to give a lot of power to people who do not have the skill set to create things they did not have previously have the power to do. But I am kind of at a miss to see, like, it's, you know, will it make people less interested in pursuing a skill or craft because they found an easier way around it. Someone mentioned to me, like, oh yeah, well, you know, artists back in the day made their own paints, and some artists still make their own paints. And if you show me a painting that you made, and you made the paint too, I'm going to be infinitely more impressed with the skill set it took to make the paint, stretch your own canvas, and then make the painting. Even though the painting may be technically less impressive than another person's painting who bought their own paint. I think that's the certain thing that a lot of people aren't taking into consideration. If you're an artist or digital artist who, you know, produces stuff, and you're kind of afraid of what the digital art landscape holds, well, not digital art, but the artificial landscape holds for you, you have to ask yourself, like, when is the novelty going to wear off? And it kind of took me back to that time when they started doing the NFTs of this, you know, RNG generated, randomly number generated RNG images of different, you know, pictures of, you know, variations of images. I wasn't very impressed with it then, even though a machine is spitting out all these variations, every variation it can think of. You know, they're all within a specific set. You know, it took the art world by storm, but to me, it still was not very technically interesting. Even though it made a lot of money, like, there's no doubt that you can make a lot of money doing that stuff. But the novelty for me wore off very, very quickly. The novelty of seeing a machine, you know, work its magic, it's very impressive. But after a short amount of time, I've just become less and less interested in it. Now, I'm only speaking for myself. If you're very impressed with, you know, a machine, you know, making something over and over and over again, and you're tweaking, you know, your prompts and stuff, and, you know, or you see an artist using it to produce different things, you know, that's all well and good. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be impressed with it. I was only speaking to, you know, my own opinion of it. I always love seeing a human artist, you know, work out their problems in real time. Like, there is something, it's something magical about seeing how the human mind works. While, you know, like AI generated art, it's going to be a machine that, you know, has scoured millions of images to produce this one image, and is thinking about it in terms of, like, you know, a certain data set. That's, you know, that's a technological feat that I find fascinating, but it still will not replace, for me, it won't replace seeing an artist, you know, develop their own technique and style as they, you know, kind of work through a prompt or a project, figuring out, you know, where they want to go, you know, where they want to go with the piece. especially watching somebody stream it in real time. Even though what is coming out on the end of a AI may be more technically more sound, I just find it less and less impressive. That magic just goes away much more quickly for me. And I'd love to know what you think in the comments below. Like, it's, if you think, if you're a traditional artist or an AI artist, I believe there will be room for both. I'm not saying that AI artists have no place in the world, because I believe, you know, art in general is going to give a lot of people who don't have the skill set the ability or even the means to use their arms and their hands. Like, there is an accessibility issue that I think people may be glossing over when they're thinking about creating things. You know, because some people just don't have the ability to use their upper body or their movements. And that can be something that I believe is going to give a lot of people a lot of power in the future. But when it comes to learning something, you're pursuing a craft. Like, I remember watching a guy way back in the day on the Discovery Channel. They were in a village in Japan. They were producing swords like they did in the 1600s. Like, oh man, that's awesome. That's like, they're two guys out there with a hammer, and you know, they're in a forge. You know, they're making this thing, you know, from scratch. And what you see as, you know, time goes on, you go to like a modern, you know, forger. The guy's been using the same techniques. You know, he's using a machine to do it. He's using a machine to like do that repetitive hammering action in two different places. Like, one piece of the human element has been kind of pulled out for a robot. It's producing the same level of quality and sometimes even better quality. But there is still a little bit of humanity removed, a little bit of imperfection removed, that is kind of something that makes art, for me, the most magical. Is that little bit of thinking through problems and that little bit of error that happens, that real-time error. Because art isn't a game of perfection. Illustration is not a game of perfection. Expression is not really a perfect, you know, a perfect pursuit. Nor should it be. It's a journey. And I think that journey is a little bit cheapened, in my own personal opinion, when you take steps to, you know, skip out on that level of craftsmanship. That craftsmanship is what gives art its staying power. That learning in real time is what makes me follow other artists. That little bit of, you know, time tested over, you know, hundreds of hours of trying to like make sure your 3/4 face looks right, or when you flip your canvas, you know, the eyes are the same size. That's something to be admired personally. I admire that dedication to what you do as a craftsman or an artist, no matter what that pursuit may be. Now, I know there are a lot of steps when it comes to producing and, you know, retouching AI generated art, but I kind of feel the same way when we were introduced to photo, well, not we, when I was introduced to photo bashing a few years ago, yeah, they produce some very interesting things, and it's a great way to generate ideas. But I was like, oh, these pieces and parts are all from different things, and essentially that's kind of what's happening now. It's high grade photo bashing. It's generating things that are quote unquote new, but it's taking that from a data set that you've already incorporated into the machine. And I'm not sure how long that is going to be interesting for people. It may. I know for a fact it's going to get better and better and better, and the results are going to get better and better and better. But there are lots of ethical questions to be answered and asked as this process goes on. And I'm not sure if, by the time, which just kind of like brought me to do this video too, when Kim Jong-gi passed, he passed on my birthday the same day. It really, like, it shook me to my core, because he's one of the people who inspire my work ethic to go as hard as I do when I go to learn things. He was a master at what he did. And to see him pass away at 47, it was crazy. I just turned 40. But hours after his passing, people were already taking his images and putting them to AI generators to make Kim Jong-gi AI art. And that's brought me back to like the desecration of memory, the cheapening of a legacy, which is very similar to what happened with the NFTs that when Stan Lee passed away, they were already like using his Twitter account to push these NFTs of other heroes, in the name of oh wow, I just said his name. Sorry, in the name of Stan Lee, and it kind of like it makes me wonder. I'm not saying this is a blanket statement, because not all people are like this who engage in AI generated art, but it makes it a whole lot easier for people to exploit people's legacies. That's what I think makes me most nervous about this, this new thing, is, because we just had James Earl Jones, kind of sign off his rights to his voice as to use AI to produce the Darth Vader voice for future projects, because he's getting old. He had the forethought to do that. But what's going to happen when another famous artist passes away? What happens when Dave Raposa? I'm not hoping anything bad happens to Dave Raposa. What happens when Dave Raposa passes away? Will his family, have to ensure that the rights to his images aren't being used in an AI machine to produce Dave Raposa-like works? I think that's going to be the major question for me as we move on, and like as we move into like this new generation of AI inspired arts. Where will the bus stop, and where will the buck stop at? Because even though the impression is going to get lower and lower and lower, the average person, not the artist, is going to not care. This is my fear. They're not going to care where the art came from. And that's kind of something that's been a problem forever. Like, they don't really, there's always going to be a faction of people who don't really care, where it came from or how it was produced. That's going to be something that's going to happen, regardless. They don't care how the steak was made. I just want to know that it's hot and it tastes good. There's going to be some ethical questions that need to be answered as we go further and further into what we think about AI generated art and what we're going to do about it. I don't know exactly where and when that's going to happen, but I think that's something we need to discuss as artists, as creators, because it's already like shifting the landscape of what we do, and I believe, no, like I said, it's going to be very empowering for people that don't have the skill sets, but it's going to be one more step towards like the loss of another skill set, I believe. The same thing with like most crafts, like arts and crafts. It's going to be a very niche market for people, and I think it's sad, but change is inevitable. Change is inevitable. If you're an artist who does their work, if you're a human generated artist, if you're making your art, as a human and you're not using an I think there's going to be a special place for those people. Whereas as time goes on, especially when you can actually post your time lapses and show exactly how you made something, because art as a pursuit is a very liberating experience, and people still want to experience that. I think that AI art can help you do that. I just feel like it's a faster way around getting the skill set to develop, get around the time to actually develop those skills. If you like, it's like jumping ahead in line. I feel like it cheapens the journey just a little bit. Just like people who use hacks in games, they want to get a 40 kill streak, but they don't want to take the time to get good at using the guns in the game, or to learn strategy to accomplish those things. I think that's kind of where we're at. We're at the point of, well, why not just like just jump the line completely and just pay for these hacks. That seems to be the smartest thing to do. But you kind of cheat yourself. You cheat yourself with the grit. I think that's a good word for it. The grit you develop from learning and failing. Attempting and failing builds an extraordinary amount of grit. And it gives you a better appreciation for what you do and what other people do as creatives. I believe that that's something that everybody needs to, no matter what you do. I think you need to have a little bit of grit, no matter what your station is in life or what you want to do. Grit is a huge part of who I am as a person. That it kind of helps you get ready for life and experience life to its fullest, because the pursuit of skill is a battle against failure. It is a constant barrage of trial and error that pays off in the end. It pays off. It gives you the confidence to know that if something doesn't work out right, not to get frustrated. And that, when you're trying out new things, it's okay to bump your head. I learned this, doing martial arts. You jump up in the air, you try out a kick, you fall, you bust your ass, you get back up and you try it again. And it may be, days to weeks before you get it halfway right. But when you've taken that skill of learning and applying and, perfecting what you do, I think that's the part about AI art that I'm that makes me most worried. It's not that it could, potentially affect people's income, because I believe artists will always want to still learn the skill set. But I think it's going to make it more or less more compelling to skip the hardship. Because hardship is hard. Hardship is something that I believe a lot of people look at with disdain. Like, they don't want to endure hardship, because hardship, it's not fun. It's not fun. It's not supposed to be fun. But it builds grit. And grit can carry you through life. A little bit of grit can take you a very, very long way. So I'm going to share that with you. Don't fear AI art, because it's going to have a place. Everything's going to have a place eventually. Where that place is, I'm not sure. Will it take your job as an artist? Maybe, maybe not. Who's to say? The way I'm looking at things right now, the way people are reacting to it, I think, well, I know it's going to get better, because that's what all AI does is, it improves itself. It's going to get better and better with time, but I believe that it's going to just look cheaper and cheaper, no matter what production comes out on the other end. Because once you've reached that height and you've done the thing with the computer, and you've mastered putting in your prompts, or polishing up what your prompts can do, what then? What is the next goal for yourself? Do you keep making more prompts? Do you, what is your next jump off point as an AI artist? What is the horizon you're trying to reach? What is the plateau you are trying to reach as an artist? When you're sculpting, something from hand, you can look at that thing and know, every little bit of yourself is in this thing. Every experience you've had, every hour you've attempted to do this thing, is now in your hands, and you can see it. It's manifest. Do you feel wholly proud of your AI art, even though 50%, 30%, 20%? At what ratio are you going to be fulfilled creatively? There is let's just, well, I label it that, yeah, the ratio of human effort, the ratio of the human element. The more humanity that's in a thing, I think is going to be very important to not only the viewer, but more importantly, the artist. So at first I was very, very, extraordinarily apprehensive at what was going to happen, but I'm getting more hopeful. I think that it can be a great thing, but I think it's ultimately going to be a hack for your average user, a hack to skip the line, a hack to not do level 1 through 5 and go straight to level 7. And I think that love, or the likes, or the attention you get from doing it, eventually is going to fade away. So I hope you enjoyed that little quick talk about my thoughts on AI art. I want to do a little side by side today and talk about human generated art and AI art at the same time. And I think this is a pretty good medium to do so, to like kind of, you know, make something, you know, side by side while we talked about it. I think that's always it's always fun for me to watch speed paints for people and see people make things in real time, you know, even though things aren't completely perfect, which these things I'm drawing are not. But I definitely had fun doing it. Make that a little bit smaller. I get more joy out of making something imperfect than I believe what I would be getting out of, you know, giving my ideas and feeding a machine a few sketches to, you know, mimic or amalgamate or approximate. So, with that, thanks so much for the birthday wishes last week. Sorry there was no video, but hey, I'm a busy guy. No. I will see you guys next week on Monday. I'm not sure doing the side by side, or we'll be talking about, there will be more and more art on the channel. I'll probably doing maybe recording some sessions I do, you know, privately, and then like speeding them up or something like that. But I really enjoyed this. And if you like this video, like it. If you got questions or comments, or you hate my impressions of AI art, you know, you could always comment below. I'll respond. Till next time, you guys keep fighting a good fight. Till next time.